Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our ASP's July webinar. If you haven't attended before, welcome. The idea of these is to try and add as much value as possible, give you some great information as to what you can do with your website, drive more traffic, etc. And we've got a really exciting one today because there's lots of really new stuff happening in the world of the web and getting your website discovered online. And gone are the old days where it was just Google. So we're now looking at Instagram, search with Google, etc., as well as AI and the chatbots. And it's a whole new way of looking at your website and how it's now discovered online. And we're going to explore some of these things today. But it's a really exciting time, to be honest. There's a lot of things changing. So the way in which you're thinking about your website, I think, should evolve and change as well. It offers you as businesses quite a lot of opportunity to kind of break out from the traditional methods of marketing, and which maybe have done in the past, and really strive forward. So we're going to explore all of these concepts today. Specifically, we're going to look at very much, what is changing in relation to search, social, specifically Instagram, AI, so specifically all of the different chatbots. What this could potentially mean for your website, because it actually has quite a lot of impact, to be honest. Also, maybe what you're doing on social as well. The idea really being to now let's start thinking about how we can drive traffic to the website all year round, rather than the traditional events methodology, which is just as kind of the lead up to the event, as a bit like an online brochure. The concept here is more about how we can now start to drive engagement all year round, build your community, build up your email databases, and really have it as a compounding asset, your website. And then we now have Instagram, which can feed into this as well, which walks along nicely. And then we've got Q&A at the end. Very quickly, I'm not sure if you don't know me, my name is John Monk. I'm head of performance at ASP. ASP for many years, since 1997, specialized in events websites. We're now, so that's fantastic, and we're very proud of the websites in which we do. But we're now very much also looking at website performance. It's all very well to have a fantastic looking website, but surely it now needs to perform, drive visitors, exhibitors, inquiries all year round, keep building your database, and really be that kind of 365 asset for your business, not just there just for the event. So that's what I head up, is the performance side of the business, really making a website and pushing it to the next level. Okay, so there has been a huge shift, and things seem to be picking up pace, quite frankly, over the last couple of years. So for many years, it has just been Google about finding your website online, and it was a relatively simple process, I guess. People would do a relatively short search on Google, and they would find your website or not. Searches were generally quite short, because obviously there was only a limited amount of space, and it was just Google. But things really are starting to change. Obviously, we've got the rise of ChatGPT in the last couple of years, and then all of the other AI bots and platforms there are out there, like Perplexity, Gemini, and millions others. So no longer can we just rely and think about Google in terms of a way in which when someone wants to find information about events or a particular topic, Google isn't just a place in which people go to now. Obviously, there's the social platforms as well. So, and they're really now starting to converge and knit together. And if you provide and produce a website which is well optimized for search, there are ways in which you can slightly update on what you're doing. So it will also be good for the AI assistants as well. So I'm going to chat through today how you can make your website search visible within all of these different platforms. So there's been a massive update in July relating to Instagram. So in the past, it wasn't by default that that different profiles were, and the content in which you had on your Instagram account was open to the internet. So when we say open to the internet, this will be where search engines such as Google, Bing, now the AI bots as well can actually go onto your website, crawl it, go onto Instagram, crawl it, and then pull all the different posts and then serve them up within their results. So that was not open as standard, and as a result, most Instagram accounts were not open. But now all content as standard from professional and creator accounts are now open to be indexed by Google and the other search engines and the AI bots. So just think about this for a second, where there's now another way in which people can find that content in which you've been posting onto Instagram. So this potentially gives so much more value to the content in which you're posting on Instagram. And also you need to start thinking about, okay, so what does this mean? So how does, if you're posting something on Instagram, how can you craft that content so it also appears in the other engines as well? Why not do something a little bit better when you post on Instagram, so there's potential for it to also appear elsewhere? And this starts to bring into account concepts such as keywords. So, for example, if you put certain keywords that people are searching for on Google within your Instagram post, then when Google crawls that post, it sees that as valuable, and then when they're searching for something like similar on Google, it could potentially bring that up. Same kind of concept with the AI tools as well. So it is quite a game changer. Already, it's still early days because it only happened earlier on in July. So exactly what's going to appear, how it's going to appear, how easy it is to rank for certain things from Instagram accounts is still not fully known. But early indication is that lots and lots of things are now starting to appear in Google from Instagram. We've got some stats down there as to, hundreds of thousands of reels are starting to appear, keywords are starting to get found. And so over time we'll learn a little bit more as to what is appearing, how to best optimize for the Google and for the AI engines on Instagram. But the current point is that now you can potentially have your content on Instagram found on the other search engines. And the big point relating to that is that things like keywords that maybe in the past you only targeted on your website is now relevant for Instagram posts because they could potentially get found as well. Oh, I have my very first question. Do Instagram posts show on Google even if you have a private account? Or does this apply for public / business accounts only? I believe it's public creator accounts only. I believe there's also a setting within Instagram that you can make them so that they aren't crawled if you don't want them to be. But obviously, if it's a creator or a business account, you generally want to promote things and therefore have them open. One caveat, I'm an SEO guy, I'm a website guy. My knowledge on Instagram is a little bit limited, so please excuse me if all of my answers in relation to Instagram aren't fully on point. But yeah, as far as I know, for your private accounts, it is that isn't open. So what does this potentially mean? So if you post on Instagram, potentially stuff could have a longer shelf life. Obviously, we all know the feeds that you get on Instagram and stuff can disappear fairly quickly, and that potentially gives it a lot longer shelf life if it appears and Google sees it as relevant for a certain keyword or phrase, etc. So it potentially makes your content more valuable for longer rather than it just being disappearing quite quickly. It can obviously then be found within searches for certain topics, etc., in both the AI engines and in Google. It could potentially appear in ChatGPT, in Perplexity, in Gemini. At the moment, we don't know, kind of what priority they're going to be placing on Instagram and crawling that content. So that'll be very much down to their own individual algorithms. But as far as we know, but it is there and it's open, but it will be down to them exactly what they show. And actually, as the question says, at the moment it's for professional and creator profiles. Just as a side note, this now as mentioned at the bottom of the slide here, this now starts to put Instagram in a way aligned with your SEO strategy. I've mentioned a couple of times about keywords. I'm always talking about keywords and banging on about this. If you don't know on your website what you're targeting, you can't target it. So there are tools available, and there's a separate webinar if you go onto our webinars page, where I've talked about keywords in a lot more detail. But if you know the number of people that are searching for certain keywords, you can therefore select which ones are most relevant to your page. So let's say it's AI conferences, for example. So, that is a keyword in which you're targeting. So obviously you can target that on your web page that might be about that particular topic. But now it's possible to align that with your Instagram content. So in the past, it would have just been hashtags where people have done certain searches on Instagram for particular topics in which they're interested in. But now you can align up those Instagram posts with particular keywords. So when your people are searching for certain things, that those can come up as well. So it does actually pull together your Instagram strategy a little bit with your website and your SEO strategy, all relating to keywords. So therefore it makes the keywords in which you choose, or the whole process of going through keyword research, selecting the right ones, what to target, makes that even more important exercise, because now it filters down into your Instagram strategy as well. Just to take a step back slightly from this, I've obviously made the assumption here that people do and optimize their websites, etc. But also I have come, so I started working within the events industry about 4 years ago. Prior to that, I've done a lot of work with a lot of other businesses, financial services, e-commerce, in which SEO and search optimization on people's websites was very, very common, just normal practice. And in certain industries, especially in financial services, because if one company did it, it means someone else had to follow suit. They all did it, so therefore it was very competitive. So they all had to do search engine optimization. Coming over to events, I found that wasn't necessarily the case. Very few websites seem to do optimization, which is fairly ironic, because a lot of the things that these other businesses that I worked on before needed to have in place weren't actually there. So, for example, you have authoritative speakers, so people ally their kind of trust and authority to a website where other companies don't. You've got highly shareable content. Let's say you have a talk or a conference session which is really interesting by a high profile person. You have that content you could potentially repurpose, which is already there for you. You have lots and lots of backlinks from people and speakers and exhibitors who will come to your events, tell people about it, and then get links from other websites through to yours. So you have lots of things in place, and which can make this work really well. But ironically, certainly a lot of the events that I speak to and websites that I analyze, they don't actually do this. So as a result, miss out on things like, regular year-round newsletter signups and building their database, getting exhibitor signups, throughout the whole year rather than just, on the lead up to the event. So therefore, it means that the website, it never really fulfills its potential. It takes 2 steps forward, maybe 1 step back, maybe 2 steps back. Sometimes when content is deleted after the event, speakers have gone, sessions have gone, exhibitors have gone, and then waiting around until they're uploaded next year. So I say all of this because what we're really talking about here with this kind of trisector of Instagram, of AI, of search, it's really part of the bigger picture of just making your website more valuable for you all year. And that's what we're kind of really passionate now to really talk about, is making sure that that website is there for you all year round, not just in the lead up to the event. So slides aside, but I just wanted to go back to the bigger picture as to why we're really doing this. All of the advantages that you actually have as an event website compared with actually many other industries' websites, and how in reality, if we sort out getting some of this great value content onto the website, they can actually perform quite well quite quickly. Right, going back into the our trisector. So we've had a little initial chat about Instagram. Now we have AI assistants, which is really interesting because if you think about the massive increase in use now of ChatGPT, etc., it has to get its information from somewhere. Now, it can go onto Wikipedia, it can go onto your Reg platform, it can go onto 101 places to get information if someone is asking about your event, or it could go onto your website. Now, one of the things to raise about AI and the AI platforms is that there's a thing called hallucination. I'm not sure if you know about this, but basically they were designed to kind of please people, to give people answers. But the downside of that is that sometimes if it doesn't actually know the answer to a question, it might make it up, basically, or it might get out-of-date information from somewhere else. But the key place in which it can get information about your event is obviously your website. Also, with these tools, people are getting used to doing longer and longer and longer questions. Now, in the past, it was just a short query that someone may ask, but nowadays it could be much longer. It could be help me find an AI conference which particularly specializes in machine learning and which there are networking opportunities located within 30 miles of London, for example, something which would have never have been typed into Google in the past. Now, how is AI, and as well as Google and Gemini, as people are typing in these longer and longer questions, how are they going to answer these questions unless you have all of that information on your website? And it all comes from written information. So often I'll look at sites, and we're chatting with a client yesterday about various sites in which the information, the sites can look absolutely fantastic, some amazing images and videos to really portray, what is going on. But when you actually look behind the scenes at how much text is on there that AI engines can read, sometimes it's limited. So the more information you can get on a website, it doesn't have to compromise how it looks. It could be sympathetically done in sort of FAQ accordions or, other sort of tabbed elements on the page. You can have lots of information on there, which gives the AI engines and Google and people, quite frankly, lots of great information in which the website can perform. But AI assistants are absolutely going nowhere. Stats are saying from last year, I believe that it was only about 3% of searches were on AI engines, but that had grown 80% in a year. So they're obviously going nowhere. The use of AI engines is going to get more and more and more, and we have to assume that that's only going to grow, and we're going to have to make our websites so they're very friendly towards the AI engines. I mentioned before about the rise of the kind of longer searches, and they're only going to get longer. People are obviously looking for very specific answers to questions that they have now. And just to re-emphasize the point that unless you actually put that information on your website, they're not going to get that information from anywhere. So lots of information about all of the things that someone may want to know about your event. So in the past, obviously, people would probably predominantly look on Google when they were trying to find information about an event like yours, or a particular topic in which an event might be relevant. But obviously, there are all sorts of ways in which people will look now, whether on social media, like I say, whether they're on ChatGPT asking questions there. And obviously they'll then go to the website as well, but the journey is absolutely not linear like it may have been in the past. You have to assume that it could be across all of these different platforms. So in actual fact, this kind of central convergence and knowing, always coming back to keywords, so kind of knowing what your keywords are, what people are looking for, that is the way in. So for example, if you're particularly targeting, let's say, machine learning, we need to make sure now that we have all of these kind of words in the right places. So whether it's on your social post, whether it's on the page that you come onto on your website, and then other information about that too. So there's that nice funnel that then comes in. So organizing your information around keywords and topics becomes even more important. Also, as a broader sphere, knowing keywords in which you're particularly targeting on a page is very, very useful for targeting on that page. But ChatGPT and Google also want to know that you're actually an expert and your events are full of experts around a particular topic. And if it's very narrow and it's only talking very precisely just about the event and the sessions, whilst that's good, and if you optimize it well, whilst that can work, as more and more people start to realize the importance of optimizing their sites, the more the requirement there is going to be to get more information on the website. So that may be the form of blog posts. I mentioned earlier about sessions where you could record those, get them transcribed, put them on as posts on the website against the person's name who may have spoken about that particular topic. And then that's starting to show Google and all of the other engines a website that isn't just an event site. It's now an actual online resource, a resource of information. In the past, and this is, from working on many other types of business websites, this has been an absolute cornerstone since the beginning, to be honest, of SEO, that the website actually is a trusted source of information. So if you think about the topics you cover in your event, if someone's just doing an informational search, not particularly about a particular event itself, there's no reason, if you have a good blog post or a past session was done on that, if that's been written well and it's been optimized, people will come in based on just getting information about the topic, and then they're on your site and will become introduced to the event. So it's a fantastic new source of leads and of people coming to the website and of traffic and all the benefits that come from that. So unfortunately, we do find that many events websites are kind of still considered to be brochures and only there for that kind of once a year type of scenario to do a great job, where campaigns are throwing people to it from social, from email, from PPC, and it's a relatively kind of short term, and almost think of it as kind of like a rental approach, in which it never gets a chance for the website to really build up authority, which helps actually all of those other campaigns. So, for example, if we just take PPC, we did a webinar with Tom McMahon from MCM Click about a month ago, where we specifically spoke about SEO and PPC and the kind of, when one works and when the other works. And in actual fact, the conversation was very much they both work together, in that PPC is exceptionally good for getting bums on seats, as Tom likes to say, in that lead up to the event itself. But if your website has got some good SEO value, you've got some great content on there, information that people want to read and will engage with, this could make the PPC campaigns work so much better and fundamentally cut the costs of the campaigns. He even cited that you can cut costs by up to about 50%. If you have a website which is well SEO'd, have great information on there, and the website performs really well, the cost of your PPC campaign could be cut by 50%. That's not me saying it, that's Tom from MCM Click saying that, and it can have a massive impact. Obviously, if you also get more people to the website organically via the various search engines, it also does reduce reliance upon some of those other marketing channels, from email, from PPC, from social media. Not there's anything wrong with those, but just to make it a nice broad marketing base, having lots of different pillars to drive people to your site. Organic, which typically isn't tapped into, is such a powerful way. And if you can improve the SEO of your website, it will drive people from there. So get more people to the website. I've mentioned here about offering ongoing value to exhibitors and sponsors. This is often slightly overlooked, in that if you can show to exhibitors that they've had X number of visitors throughout the year to their page from on your website, obviously it's going to provide your sales team some great information in which when you're contacting the potential exhibitors next year, you can show all sort of stats as to the number of visitors to their page, and also potential new exhibitors. You can show how much traffic that sort of exhibitor pages get in Google. And it's a fantastic way of obviously for sales and filling floor space, which has massively helped if it's good SEO. I have a new question. Let's go through this. Do the knowledge based pages necessarily need to be tagged to a menu, i.e., can they be accessible but not active, but not directly accessible? Okay, fantastic. So get this question quite a lot. So any page on a website, even though there may be a benefit in which it works well in Google and the information could get served up by ChatGPT, etc., it needs to add value to a person. It needs to have genuine value to a person and a reader on the website. So as a result, there always should be some way of getting to it, not just kind of hidden, maybe somewhere in the footer. There should be some genuine value to that. So obviously there is always a hierarchy of information and where people need to go to first. So the agenda to speakers to register now, for example, may always be at the top of the list. But if you have, for example, past speakers, or you have kind of past sessions that you may have, or kind of older blog posts, there should always be ways of getting to them, ideally via the main menu, in as long as it's done sympathetically and done well. But there should always be a way of finding them, and I'd suggest they're not kind of hidden per se. Also, from a sort of technical SEO point of view, Google and ChatGPT, etc., they have what's called a spider, and that's basically a computer program that will come on and crawl around the website. And unless it has an easy way of finding those pages, which will be a similar way, to be honest, in the way in which people find them, so in via the main menu, via links on your homepage, if they don't have an easy way to find those pages are going to perform not as well within search. It's also worth noting that in a menu, Google will treat the pages that link off of it in a similar priority in which a person would. So if you have a page very prominent within the menu, that's obviously treated as more important and more likely to rank better. So basically, it is important for all content to be valuable to people and be able to get to it in some way, shape or form. But I do appreciate there's a hierarchy to this information. So even if it's not immediately, sort of front and center on your menu, that you still do need to be able to get to it. Hopefully that answers the question. So what do we actually optimize? Well, and this actually, we have one more question. Do you have an example of an event website that does a good job of being a 365 discovery engine? If you drop us a line afterwards, I'm not sure if we'll have to obviously get permission from the client to sort of start showing what they're doing. They might not want to particularly shout, but yeah, we've got lots of case studies and examples. If you drop us a line afterwards, and I can give you some case study information on that. Okay, what to optimize? Some actual bits which will help within Google and within the AI engines. Will speaker pages often overlooked, and we find that speakers actually, and I was actually speaking to a client earlier, all of them can actually drive a lot of traffic. People will search for the person's name, and it's often their bio page on an event that can even appear higher than their own LinkedIn profile. Now, what does optimizing mean? It means basically having a unique profile that may not be just copied and pasted from elsewhere. Ideally, it may include some information about some of the sessions they might be giving at the event, but it just needs to be complete and it needs to be unique. So speaker pages, they're really fantastic. And it's not just about optimizing the pages today. It's also doing what I mentioned to a client earlier, in which you don't then delete them, after the event. So it's a new client that we have, and they're moving their website over to ASP. So what I've advised the client this morning was to, and these are all past speakers that are driving web traffic, is to develop a new library called past speakers, and then we're importing all of those into there. So they will always get found. For example, one of the speakers, it drove, I think it was about 320 clicks in the last 3 months to their website. So why would you want to get rid of that page? It's daft. And yes, in a library called Past Speakers, it's not duping anyone that they're there this year. They were there last, but by that point, the visitors on the website are now potentially looking around and saying, actually, is this an event I want to come to? So speaker pages, very important, and I'd always highly recommend making sure they're well written and also not deleted at the end of the event, and maybe put into a library called past speakers. Session descriptions, very similar in many ways. There can be some amazing information that would go into these in terms of what's being covered and particular topics. I'd say typically these don't drive as much traffic as speakers, because the topics covered can be quite niche, and there certainly isn't the time to spend optimizing in detail each of the different sessions. But maybe if you have keynotes and you have sort of top sessions, you could potentially optimize those. But certainly can be something that could drive good traffic, and certainly something which you wouldn't just necessarily delete at the end of the after you've had your event. Always worth looking at them on Google Search Console, seeing if your past sessions actually do drive traffic, and if they do, keep them and maybe put them into a library called past sessions. If they're driving no traffic, feel free to delete them. We have another question. On Instagram, are stories also considered for the SERP results? We can now add captions with keywords in them. I believe they are, but there's obviously all the different formats on Instagram, and I think it's just to be a case of kind of keeping an eye at the moment as to what is appearing in search results. So I believe they will be showing, but at the moment we're still working out, okay, they might technically show, but are they actually showing, and how to actually best optimize them. But as best practice at the moment, certainly if you know your keywords and you're putting keywords into them, also within the alt text for images as well that might relate to that, that will certainly help. I mean, if it doesn't take much more time than what you're doing anyway, why not just add that in? Okay, so very similar to speaker pages as exhibitor listings. This very much depends, we found from our clients, on the industry and the size of the companies that might be exhibiting. So we were dealing with an organizer a few weeks ago who typically deals with very small businesses, and for them that was actually extremely valuable to make sure that all the bios and all of the profile pages for the exhibitors are really well written, because they can properly appear. Now, if you've got Apple, for example, exhibiting, or Amazon, now, what's the point? Because there's no way that your exhibitor listing on your page is going to appear above their own website. But we certainly find that for medium to small companies, if they have original bios, originality is the key. It's not just copied and pasted from somewhere else. Then certainly they can appear in search results, and in some cases can drive good traffic. But just like with speakers and with sessions, you do need to check and have a look onto Google Search Console. If you're not sure what that is, we've also done a webinar. If you look at our past webinars on Google Search Console, invaluable tool. It just shows how well your website performs in Google. If you look at those exhibitor listings, you can see how much traffic is being driven from those. So next year you can see whether or not you need to keep those, or if you don't. I've just kind of left the best to last in many ways. If you're if you're ever going to truly turn your website from an event website into a real 365 informational resource that can be trusted in the long term and really become an asset, it starts to need to provide knowledge and high value information. And that's only really going to be provided in many cases. I mean, that obviously can be called different things: blogs, articles, white papers, interviews, whatever they might be. The key is that it's high value, quality information around the topics in which your event covers. So, and ideally also presented by experts. So if I was to write something about AI, it wouldn't, even if it was posted on exactly the same website, it wouldn't fly anywhere near as much as if Elon Musk wrote an article about AI. So it's a very similar concept. So if you had a session, it's recorded, you get it transcribed, you get it put onto your website, and you have that industry expert's name at the top, that is going to perform much, much better than, let's say, a blog post on exactly the same topic, maybe written by someone in your office who wasn't as high a profile expert as the person who gave the session. So these conference sessions are potential absolute gold for your website, and it works so well with Google. It'll work so well with ChatGPT, and they really shouldn't be underestimated. And obviously, if we go back to Instagram, how can that fit in? Well, if you now have all of that session content, which is going to get published, well, you can now obviously promote that throughout the year with Instagram and make sure that the keywords that are being targeted on the blog post, which is of the session, are also within the Instagram post as well. So you've got a nice linear flow between and consistency between the keywords going through the Instagram post and going onto your blog post. By the way, if you want to know how to actually optimize a particular page, just gone through with various concepts here. Again, keep talking about past webinars, but we do have a very practical past webinar on how to optimize a web page, go through step by step on exactly how to do that. And if you follow that process, you'll be able to optimize a web page. We have one more question. What about YouTube, as they belong to Google? YouTube, absolutely. The concept of keywords also flows through to YouTube as well. And if you know what your keywords are, very much put those onto your video onto YouTube. You can optimize the description, you can optimize the title. So absolutely, you can do it on YouTube. And again, it all comes back to the keywords. Make sure that they flow through and you have consistency on those between all the different platforms in which you post on. One thing I would say is that your website you own, you can be nice and flexible with your website. And like I said, all of these different engines are always searching for information to publish, and therefore it can come from your website. Whereas when you're posting on Instagram and when you're posting on YouTube, you do not own those platforms. So therefore you're a little bit more reliant upon their algorithms. But as long as you know your keywords and you're consistent between all the different platforms, it will definitely, and you know people are searching for those keywords because you've done your research, it maximizes your chances of success. This is pretty much talking about what we said before, but the content that you have, and I think so many events, and I speak to people all the time, actually really do not realize the value of the content that they have. In so many other industries, getting this high value content is so expensive for them. And it's not just the content, it's whose people's names are kind of aligned with that. We had a client who made head guards, rugby head guards, in the past, and they used to try and get rugby players to kind of write blog posts about the head guards. Quite expensive, very difficult to do, and it really stunted, their opportunity to publish content. If you consider the opportunity that you potentially have of recording all of your different conference sessions, and then getting them down onto page now. It's so much more cost effective than many other businesses, and it really will turn your website into an information resource which will perform. Great thing is, at the moment, not many people are doing it, so therefore, if you do it, you'll be ahead of the curve. We do actually, this concept of recording the sessions, putting them down on paper, the theory of just doing this is quite easy, because you can get the transcript, you can get ChatGPT to just write it. There is a little bit of devil, unfortunately, in the detail, in that number one, if you don't know your keywords, you can have a really great article, but it will just not perform if you haven't done your keyword research. And secondly, if you haven't kind of organized your website, so Google and the AI engines kind of understand the themes of the site and the key topics on which you're targeting, that can hamper growth as well. So I will come on to that in a second. But so certainly you can do this yourself. You can get the transcription, you can whack it into ChatGPT, and you can publish an article. As part of our kind of performance services, ASP now provides a service called AV to Article, where we do those steps, but also we do the key steps of making sure we understand the keywords in which we're targeting. It's written in relation to those keywords and compared with the top ranking pages for those keywords, and make sure that that page is better than those, as well as getting relevant references. Further works that the speaker may have spoken about, we reference those, so they're pretty high quality. So if you're interested in finding more about AV to Article, drop me a line afterwards. It's pretty competitively priced, or crazily priced when I consider the prices that the fees that people used to pay for blog posts. So what are the quick wins? Well, I think first of all, really, is just to start to get some idea as to your keywords. Now, and then you can start putting those into your Insta posts. Like I've said, we've actually got another webinar on finding your keywords, so go and check that out, and then you can find out how to do your keyword research. So I'd certainly go there. Speaker bios and rewriting those, if they are, especially if they're a bit light on content or they're copied and pasted from elsewhere, that's certainly a way of adding great value to those speakers. And then once you've got that post there, if, for example, that speaker has done a blog post, link to that blog post, internal linking between bits of content. If you haven't got much content, it's less valuable. But once you start building this content out, getting links between, for example, the session, a blog post the speaker may have written, that becomes more important. Like I mentioned before, Google and the AI engines will come onto your website, they'll crawl around, and they need to be able to find the other bits of content nice and easily. So if you do interlink stuff, then that really helps. So search is not just on Google anymore. I think the outset of or the onset of ChatGPT, etc., is really changing the way in which people are searching and are looking for information. So, and this really can't be ignored. And I think the key thing to remember is that the information it's going to be looking for is from somewhere, and why not make your website that point of truth and that source of truth? So that this is going nowhere. So starting to think about how you can get more quality information on your website is really more important than ever. And just can start to consider that your website is this kind of 365 asset that you have. Instagram can now be very much part of this. Keywords that you might be targeting on a particular session, you can now put in onto your Instagram post that might be promoting it, and so therefore you've now got potential 2 ways of getting found within search rather than just one. And the AI tools are going to get more and more a way in which people will find events, and maybe it's not even that people are searching specifically for an event. Maybe someone's searching for a particular topic and they're just doing research into a topic. And it's only from then that they actually find out that there are events where they can go and see speakers and meet exhibitors, etc. around that. And that's where your event could pop up. So just think that, yeah, the AI tools could be extremely powerful for you in the future. Your website, it can be there for you 365, and it genuinely can. All the time, it was normal for me to work on websites in which you would see traffic, just like a consistent, steady stream of traffic all the way through the year. And they were coming on and reading content, and they may be signing up to a newsletter, or maybe they were getting a special offer. Blog posts, speakers, sessions, exhibitors, they can all drive traffic to your website. They genuinely can, and potentially large volumes of traffic and all year round. So you don't have to just rely on the other traditional channels such as PPC and social to drive people just in those few months before the event. And because you're an event, you have fantastic content typically available to you, whether it's via conference sessions, interviews with attendees. There's typically a lot more information and content available to an event than maybe to many other businesses. So I suggest maybe thinking about how you can start now to get that information. I understand that getting audio recordings from sessions is relatively inexpensive. So start thinking about how you can get that and then getting that information down on the website. Like I said before, this doesn't need to be perfect, especially at the moment, as the industry doesn't aggressively SEO their websites. It's all about starting. It's all about thinking about how you can start to do some of the concepts in which I've raised here. And we have found with many of our clients in which we've helped doing stuff like this, initially, you don't actually sometimes need to do that much actually to make quite a big impact. Did want to just raise here, and I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier about the whole concept that, I mean, people talk about content being king, and if you just get content on the website, that the traffic will follow. Well, I had a stark reminder of this a couple of weeks ago when I analysed a client site. Obviously, within events, it's fairly normal that you have maybe a number of events, and then alongside there could be a news website, for example, for the industry. And this particular client had thousands and thousands of bits of news on the news site, and the actual monthly traffic was pretty low. I said 1,000 visitors a month here. I mean, I'm used to kind of working on blogs in other industries where you maybe have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 visitors a month from blogs, etc. that people have written. So 1,000 when you have thousands of written news articles is very, very poor. So it really kind of reminded me how content is only king if it's organized and it's optimized. Because otherwise, even if it is generated via AI tools and it's all done efficiently, still, if it's not actually performing, it still costs time and money and effort to get that content onto your website and to manage that. So I think it's just reminding the concept that content is extremely important. It can work very, very well, but if it's not organized and it's not optimized, it won't necessarily work well. Often get asked by clients, can we do this ourselves? Well, absolutely, very much. Certainly the process of a lot of the things I've spoken about here, you can do them. I've mentioned about the webinars that I've done, where if you go step by step and follow your way through those, there are many things that you can do yourselves. SEO is quite a big topic. There are many elements in which you can get tripped up. We do find typically within marketing teams that people have not been SEO trained, or maybe just to a certain level. So would certainly suggest upskilling if necessary, and getting some training. We can certainly help with that if that's ever relevant to you, and which can train teams to do this themselves. Often we find people don't have the skills in terms of the bigger strategy. So maybe it's doing that keyword research, selecting the particular topics to go after, to then know how to best organize the information on the website. So often we help people with that, and then once that's done, people maybe take on board the kind of content creation, etc. afterwards. So yes, we typically find that there are many elements that people can do, but often people sometimes require a bit of direction and knowing where to go. And also in terms of optimizing stuff, how best to do it, because the devil sometimes is in the detail. So you can do, but certainly some training and some guidance is often needed. We've had some fantastic questions here. Oh, we just got one through. Look at that for timing. Do you have any other tool recommendations, tools to recommend than Google Trends or Google Ads Keyword Planner for finding best keywords? Fantastic question. They are a bit clunky. I do get that. Keyword Keg is one that I like to use. It is unfortunately a paid for tool, but it's really easy to use. So yeah, Keyword Keg. I use it in two ways. You can either just put in a seed keyword, let's say AI conference, and it will then come up with loads of alternative suggestions for stuff relating to that. You can also generate your own big lists of possible keywords. And you can upload them in bulk and get them from there. Pulls in data also, so it does Google, does Bing, pulls in data also if you want it from YouTube and all other sources as well, but I particularly just focus on kind of Google really. There is the opportunity to filter them down to just questions. So if you're looking for keywords, it can just help drive people with particular questions that people are asking, which can be very useful as well. We have another question. Given the leaning generally towards mobile and the need for optimization, is there an option within the ASP platform to have a mobile-only view or specific structures for mobile and desktop separately? Brilliant question. Mobile extremely important. Google moved to mobile first. I forget that it was a while back now anyway. So Google will often look at the mobile version of your website, and it needs, even if the majority of your visitors might be desktop, Google still, as a general rule across the internet, mobile first is the way in which people consume websites. So therefore, it doesn't need to be able to perform on mobile. Thing is, obviously, on different size screens and different size devices, you may need to present the content in different ways. So on ASP's Composer 2 platform, on Composer 2, there are ways in which you can show certain content on desktop and other content on mobile. What I certainly would advise against would be, for example, let's say on the homepage you had FAQs that were shown on desktop, but then they were hidden on mobile. That's not a good thing to do. Google certainly wouldn't like that, because it would look at the mobile version first, see no FAQs, and then only see them on the desktop, and they'll be massively discounted. So where this works well would be maybe you have a different version or a different aspect of an image, or you have certain design elements which look better on different devices, so you kind of switch between the two. But the core content behind them should always be the same, sort of the written word that's actually on the page. In terms of two versions, as I say, we can switch between within the one web page between the desktop version and the mobile version of specific elements. There used to be a thing in the past, we had AMP sites where you would have kind of separate mobile sites. We don't do that anymore, because we now have fully responsive sites that can change depending on the particular device. And also it's not great for kind of the management of information, because you have information in two separate platforms and you have to keep both up to date. So it's just the one website. Like I say, on Composer 2, you can actually switch elements between one and the other, so you can have some images that might work well on desktop and some that work well on mobile, or other responsive elements like FAQs or something else. You might just present them slightly differently. Like I say, the core information behind needs to be exactly the same. Oops, we have one more question. What's the benefit of using a dedicated event website rather than platforms like Eventbrite? This is a fantastic question, basically because you own it. It's yours. I mentioned about, and you have, so Eventbrite are always going to have certain restrictions on what they can do, etc. Whereas if you have an event website, it's 100% yours. You can add code on there. You can have all the sort of functionality that you particularly want, which is very much relevant to your audience. With something like Eventbrite, there's always going to be huge limits as to what you can do, because obviously they have a huge range of types of events in which they do, and which is good enough, I think, sometimes for some businesses when they're just getting going. But then, for example, on an ASP website, you've got integrations with all sorts of stuff. You have ways of feeding in speakers, you've got ways of feeding in exhibitors, much more comprehensive in terms of the information that you can provide for an event. But yeah, with Eventbrite, might be okay for someone who's kind of just getting going and just needs a website up there. But if you want to create this kind of compounding asset that's going to be yours and add more and more value year after year, unfortunately with Eventbrite, you'll be extremely limited. Oh, we have one more. Do we know how often AI, like Gemini, gets information updates? I've just asked Gemini to find me events showcasing a very unique car, and we have a blog about it coming to our... Okay, so it's basically, the question is, with the different platforms, how often do they update their information? That's a fantastic question. So they're all going to be different for starters. So I know, for example, with ChatGPT, you now have the web search option, and which will now start to gather information from its cache, but also kind of from live web searches. I think this is what this is going to prompt me to do, is to actually probably summarize down how quickly you can expect your information to appear in the different engines if it's presented well. I don't, off the top of my head, if I'm honest, have answers to how quickly it will happen with all of them, but it will. But the things that will have an impact on it will be how easy it is for your web page to be crawled. The keywords in which you have on your web page, are they relevant to what the search might be about on ChatGPT or Gemini? But also then there is the other factor of, because like you've just asked, is to how often do they crawl the site and how often do they present it? So it's quite an in-depth topic, and you've inspired me to write a blog post about that. So stay posted and I'll give you a fuller answer on that. Well, thanks very much, everyone. An amazing number of questions. I hope you found that useful. If it'd be useful for you, we do free homepage audits for clients, just giving some brief initial ideas as to how you can make some of the improvements I've spoken about. We do, if you want to just kind of dip your toe into getting your website optimized, we do kind of short 4-hour blocks of time, just to give an idea as to sort of things in which we can help. Understand it's kind of a new thing for a lot of clients, so if you don't have the budget yet, quite affordable, just kind of 4 hours, and we can maybe do a bit of keyword research, or whatever is the most appropriate thing at the time for your website. I also mentioned AV to article, quite an affordable way to actually find to get your sessions down on paper on your website and then published. So if any of these are interest, follow the link or go to the QR code and drop me a line. Thanks very much, everyone. We've hit our time. I hope you found that useful. We'll be having another webinar in a month's time. Stay posted and look forward to seeing you then. Thanks very much.